keeping it rolling here on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast. Before I jump into the next segment, I want to remind you guys, if you have any questions or comments you want to make at any point during this live show, to use the tip and donations link you see on your screen. GSMCPodcast.net enables me to see your question pop up on my screen. I can read it on air, and I can get your guys' perspective or how you guys feel on any topic that I'm talking about or just on the segment in general. It's a massive help for this show, and we greatly appreciate anytime you guys are able to use that link, which again is GSMCPodcast.net. But continuing on with what we were talking about, the NFL potentially having some games on Netflix. This whole thing is really starting to make a lot of sense to me. It's starting to fall into place the more and more these live events happen on Netflix, and the more and more NFL personalities, former athletes, start appearing on Netflix. Of course, if you weren't aware now, the whole topic issue that this all revolves around is that the NFL is set to play games on Christmas Day this year. Two of them actually falling on a Wednesday this year, and that raised some eyebrows, but the NFL is going through with it. How it all pans out, where the games are going to be streamed, and where people can just tune in to watch these games on Christmas Day. That's a big part about it, and the idea right now is that the NFL is looking to get around $50 million to $100 million for the broadcasting rights to each of the two games this year. And where Netflix comes into it now, I mentioned Boomer Esiason, former host, member of the CBS Today group there on Sundays leading up into the games at 1 o'clock. He made an appearance on WFAN, the radio station, and brought up the idea of Netflix sort of sliding in here now with these Christmas Day games being a hot topic. Who's going to broadcast them, where people can go and watch them. He is really the first person that brought up this idea of live games from the NFL coming to Netflix. And specifically, he said, do not be surprised if the NFL and Netflix get in bed for a nice little Christmas Day football games. I would not be surprised. And it makes sense when Boomer Esiason says something like this. You know, it's kind of been in the back of my mind with Netflix doing a lot of these sort of events, live events that include sports, former athletes, and just things revolved around the game of football specifically. They have other soccer things on there. You have the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight being streamed live on Netflix. The Tom Brady roast that happened about a week ago now. It was a massive hit. I thought it was great. A lot of people are raving about it, with all the comedians on there obviously drawing in a lot of attention, but also former athletes there that you go on the greatest roast of all time to watch on Netflix. You don't really know what this is going to be. It's a live event, so you tune in and you look at Tom Brady, you look at all these football guys, and you might not know a lot about them, but you see some other comedians there, some other personalities in the audience, and it just draws more attention to this. Once you hear the jokes, once you see the people being introduced or being made fun of at the roast, you sort of, get a good vibe off of it just because it makes you laugh. They might tell a great joke that you really liked, and then it sort of triggers you to go out and find out more about them. You're interested now more in them, and then it leads into more getting involved in the sport. If they're former athletes, you look at the current athletes, and you know how it all goes, that sort of process. I think the NFL really hit a home run here with this greatest roast of all time with Tom Brady, introducing the world of football now more into Netflix. They also had the quarterback series on there. They're coming out with a wide receiver series this summer as well. So all of that is making sense in how this all falls in line with NFL being more involved with the live events. You also have, outside of just your typical sports, the WWE is also going to be streaming Monday Night Raw exclusively from Netflix starting in 2025, and then having all their other big name shows follow off of that. Everything is shifting over to these streaming platforms. Amazon Prime has games now. Peacock has exclusive rights to a playoff game. More and more, it's starting to shift into this realm, and I think Netflix isn't dumb by any means to just use layman's terms. They know what this landscape is starting to pan out to be. The NFL certainly knows how to keep up with trends and have games on Christmas, sort of like the NBA has been doing. They also are now starting to hop on that trend and have games on Christmas Day to attract that audience that might not have been involved with the NFL during this time of year. Now, Netflix seems very intriguing as of now, and I think there's definitely some factual idea behind this Netflix and NFL partnership, just because there is an awkward spot here. I mentioned before with the games being on a Wednesday. You usually have CBS, Fox on Sundays. On Saturdays, it might be the NFL Network. And really, where the games have been shown for these holiday games, the Christmas Day games, they're usually on the NFL Network. At least one of the games are. Usually the Christmas Eve games, the Christmas Day games, they're usually on the NFL Network. A couple of them are. But if you guys weren't aware also, the NFL Network really got into this situation where they're starting to release some of their main talent on some of their programs. Michael Irvin was let go. NFL Total Access is starting to slow down. It might be shut down. I want to say Good Morning Football as well is also in a weird spot right now with their talent and continuing on with their show. And the NFL Network right now as a whole is in a weird spot where there's a lot of gray area. I mentioned on a YouTube short or just on this live video that ESPN and NFL Media, the NFL Network, are close to agreeing on a deal to kind of merge together. So where these games now go to be streamed, these Thanksgiving Day games, these Christmas Eve, Christmas Day games go to be streamed, there is an opening there for Netflix, for another one of these companies to slide in there and get the broadcasting rights to these games. And it seems too perfect, too obvious now to not happen. With how successful Netflix is becoming with these live events, I think it would be a missed opportunity if the NFL and Netflix don't agree on something like this. It might be a bit fast for a lot of people to just absorb all these new platforms that they have to get accustomed to and learn about to go watch their favorite team. But I think riding this wave out and how much momentum it's getting now, I think it's too obvious for the NFL not to take advantage of it. And of course, they hold the leverage a lot because of the product that they're trying to put out there. Obviously, people want to have these games, want to have all eyes on their platform. So the NFL has some leverage there. And I think also, in saying that, with the NFL having this leverage, I think Netflix also will have to not cater to the NFL and what they're asking for, but I think both of them will find a common ground, and it just is too obvious and only a matter of time for not only this to happen with the Christmas games. I think it's only a matter of time before a lot of these games are being brought over to Netflix, more on Amazon Prime, I'm sure, more on Peacock. And I think the holiday games, the holiday day games, are a good intro to ease it into some of the lives of some of these people that might not be fans of it, pulling them away from their traditional cable TV. People are going to not like the change or going to be confused by it and how to watch their favorite teams, like I mentioned. But I think introducing it in this way, just with, all right, we're just going to do it once a year for the next 2 to 3 years, however they want to settle it, to only stream it on Netflix for Christmas and Thanksgiving, and then people get accustomed to it, and then you could explore streaming some other games there more and more. Also, not only for the NFL, but also this opens the door for other sports. It sets the precedent for maybe some NBA games coming over to Netflix, and also just opening that door a little bit. Maybe the MLB also. I know they have a partnership, or at least the MLS does as well, with Apple TV, another streaming platform. I don't see why Netflix wouldn't want to try and get a piece of the cake, so to say, there with NBA games or MLB games there. There's a lot of intricacies that I'm not really going into, but that is just a realm where if the NFL starts to do it, I think more of these other big sports will also try to explore that possibility of getting their content on these platforms as well. And I would expect more news around the broadcasting rights and more on this story when the NFL releases its official schedule next week on Wednesday, May the 15th. I expect more to sort of be brought up about this. If they announce the schedule, they usually, I'm pretty sure they announce where the games will be on. CBS, Fox, or anything like that, NBC, Sunday Night Football, stuff like that. They usually announce that as well with the schedule, I'm pretty sure. So if you go to the Christmas Day games and you see who's playing on there and maybe it's unknown or to be determined or something like that, I think that's a good sign to show that maybe they're considering this avenue, but we're going to have to wait until next week. But I just wanted to bring that up now because Netflix is really riding a big wave right now, a high off of the roast and off of these other live events. And especially with this new generation, just to mention this before I go into the next segment, a lot of the younger generation goes to these streaming platforms already. They're more accustomed to it, and it's a good way to get to the younger generation quicker rather than cable TV, them not being really interested in that. Everyone's on their phone, everyone's looking at streaming and social media and things like that. I think this is a great way to just go straight to the younger generation and get them involved earlier on in these sports and in these big companies' products. Just an idea to throw out there, just something to give you guys thought on this whole topic. But let me know what you guys think, if this is a good idea. Do you hate it? Do you love it? Please leave it in the comments or in the live chat box on this show. But in the meantime, we will move on with the rest of this episode. After the break, we're going to talk about more, like I mentioned, on Tyler Boyd and his arrival to the AFC South, as well as touching on St. Louis being a potential home for an NFL team, why I believe that could be a real possibility, as well as the Green Bay Packers' new running back room and how good, how much better it makes them in 2024. All of that is coming up in just a few seconds. Don't go anywhere.